Hello, 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 and welcome to this week's episode of Futon Talks. I am your host, Christopher Midling, joined as always by my loyal co-host, Joshua Castro.
That's me, loyal.
That's right. And today, we have a very fantastic guest. He is the king of improv. He is the town tart wherever he goes. And he is famous. The phenomenal filmmaker, Joel Haver, everybody. Joel, how are you doing?
Hey, everyone. Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, of course.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so kind and generous to come down to our level.
No, I mean, I know it was a big
No.
deal to receive an invitation from the prestigious Futon Talks.
Of course.
But
Well,
we're very
I looked
grateful.
you guys up. I saw the thumbnails you do for the videos, and they were too good, so I had to... I'm hoping I get my face plastered on some
Oh,
character
baby.
or
Of
something.
course.
Yeah.
Your face will be
Oh,
on
you will.
everyone's face.
It's just going to be your face on everyone's bodies. It's going to be perfect. George Clooney, Meryl Streep, a fox. It's going to be great.
And not even the
A
characters.
real fox,
just-
not one from this movie. That'd be crummy.
You will be the futon, actually. It'll be your face.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit alarming to see. I don't know if I should give this away, but the Futon Talks, I'm not seeing a
Joel?
futon right now.
Joel? No. So
This issue again. Oh,
we started on a futon. The first
Yeah.
10 episodes, it's all futon talks. Josh had to move away, so we can't be on a futon, but
It's a mental futon.
yeah,
so,
it's a mental space. It's a happy
exactly.
place. You know?
yeah.
The futon is a feeling, Joel.
Yeah.
It's more than just an object.
It's for both rest and sleep. That's what.
Yeah,
That's right. For rest, for sleep, for love, for friendship, for more. It defies definition.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Thanks for clarifying.
Of course.
I'm sorry.
Apparently, you're not the only one with the questions. We've learned.
But I guess before we start getting into the swing of things with the movie, which is our topic is the Fantastic Mr. Fox, by the way. We do have a topic.
We usually forget.
I'm kind of going to hand it over to Josh really quick for some quick, early, fast ones. We have questions at the end of every episode. We call it fast ones. It's the quickest thing
That
we
was
could come up
incredibly
with.
original. It was very fast. But I have a couple get to know you questions. I know that I know you've done interviews in the past, and I know you're, a celebrity, but
Yeah.
we want to make sure you have the chance to feel like you can be comfortable with us, and we want the audience to feel like they can be comfortable with you. So we just got a couple get to know you questions. We're going to make it easy for you. But the first one, the most important one, is what is your favorite free appetizer from one of those places that we thought were nice when we were kids, and why? Examples being, like the breadsticks from Olive Garden, the chips from Chili's, like the cheesy biscuits from Red Lobster.
This is very specific. I'm not sure how wide this chain goes, but there's this place called Texas Roadhouse,
Oh yeah.
and they have the best rolls. The free rolls that you get right at the start of the meal. They're like buttery and garlicky, and they're just the best in the world. And you could just go there and not eat a meal and just keep getting them. And that's essentially, you'd get the best meal you could there.
That's my wife and I's date night right there. That's what we do. We order waters and drink the rolls. I'm kidding. We don't do that. We're not thieves. But those are the best. My wife, that's her favorite. She loves the Texas Roadhouse with their like special butters and whatever.
Yeah, those are great.
It's beautiful. Great answer.
Thank you. I haven't been since I was a kid either, I don't think. At least since high school or something. I gotta go
Oh, no
back.
way.
I gotta go back. I gotta taste those rolls again.
Well, I mean, Texas Roadhouse is going to sponsor you now that you said that, so it'll be perfect. It's a perfect deal.
Yeah.
And what about you, Christopher? What's your favorite free appetizer? We don't want to just give all the attention to Joel.
Of course
here.
not. He's only the guest.
He's only the most important one.
a lot of the places I went to as a kid didn't have very many appetizers that were free. We didn't go out very much, but there's the Sierra Nevada Brewery, and they would give you like these very warm rolls with the oil and vinegar or whatever. And that's basically what
I feel like
ate
that was a
when we
great
went there.
trend. It was the best, man.
So
they have like the different types of bread.
So another type of roll or bread. Common
You
theme.
guys are just roll guys.
So the oil and vinegar, that's a classic, but do you think it beats just straight up butter?
No.
Because
No.
like putting butter on a roll, like it's hard to top. Just a lot of butter and bread.
Yeah. My
I just apply the butter directly to my mouth.
Yeah, just straight with a spoon.
I don't know. I've seen my wife. She loves butter, but when she gets the oil and vinegar, it's basically she's having the bread with her oil and vinegar. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, just
She treats it
drench
as a sponge.
Just
Oh, those
drenched.
are wonderful answers, guys. Wonderful answers.
what about you, Josh?
Did you have one in
I
mind
got.
when you asked?
Oh man. Yeah, I'm a chips guy. Chips from Chili's. I'm a simple man, but I remember we'd go there when I was a kid, and we would only ever order off like the 2 for $20 meal. And my parents would share one, and my sister and I would share one. I don't know what was wrong with my family, but we could definitely afford not to just have two for 20s. But I remember I would eat like. My parents thought it was important that we eat as many of the chips as possible, so we'd get like 4 rounds of these chips. And our waiters were like, "What's wrong with these people?" We drink like 2 liters of soda and like 4 things of chips, and so that's really good memories for me.
You guys were like really
not being able to taste, and
You guys were fighting to stay alive at Chili's. You guys
apparently
eat as
man.
much as you can before we go.
last meal for the
you
week.
guys don't get to eat. We'd eat once a weekend. It was always Chili's.
Nice.
But yeah, that's a great memory. So that's my favorite one. I feel like it's a point of what's the word? Not a point of contention, but I feel like people are very passionate about their free appetizers at kind of medium nice places,
Yeah,
At least here they are.
it is funny that you point out that you thought they were nice. Because, like, I remember thinking, like, Applebee's and Ruby Tuesdays.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
You're like, wow, what a nice restaurant. And then you find out it's like the bottom tier of, like,
I know.
sit-in dining. Yeah.
I gotta be quiet about this next part because my wife's in the other room. But she's from rural Idaho. I don't know if like the news has reached all of rural Idaho that like, what's the Italian one? Oh, Olive Garden. I'm retarded. But I don't know if like the news has reached here that like Olive Garden is not like top tier nice restaurant. But like we heard someone had proposed in Olive Garden, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, And she was like, why? Olive Garden's like really nice. I was like,
This is why.
we had to have a talk about it. But yeah, it's
Of
funny.
course
It's
they're
weird,
nice.
like looking back.
The Olive Garden, they bring you like a metric ton of salad no matter what you order. It's just that giant.
And it's all pepperoncini.
The ring was in the
Yeah.
salad.
Yeah.
That's exactly. You hide it inside the peppercini. That way they don't get surprised by the crunch. Am I right?
Yeah.
But, but anyways, excuse me. We don't want to spend all of our time on these weird appetizers. I got a couple more questions for you, Joel. There's a question that we often ask when getting to know people about what color is a person's favorite color, but which color would you be if you were a color?
I don't know, because I've always been bad at that, because growing up, I never really had a favorite color. I liked most of them. I think there's types of colors. Like, I like pastels a lot, which I think lends itself to Wes Anderson pretty nicely.
I know.
But I do like pastels a lot. And I think I would be pastel because there's something light and fun about a pastel, and I'd like to think I'm a pretty light guy. I try to be. So I'm not sure if I could say like just Easter colors or something like that. Yeah.
I like it. Spring colors, nice and bright. I love that.
Beautiful.
What about you, Christopher? Are you a creamy pastel boy?
I don't know what I am.
Something darker?
I mean, I have orange hair. That I know for sure.
That is true. It's hard to forget.
I don't know. Maybe I really like yellow, and I feel like
Ooh, you do love
I do love yellow, and I feel like that could represent me in some fashion. Once you get to know me, maybe I'm not so bright after all, but maybe I'm like a mustard yellow, you know?
Oh, a dirty yellow that you dropped
Yeah,
on the way into the house.
a little bit of spice in there.
I like that. Hello.
That's right.
I love that. That's a beautiful answer, Chris. Oh, I think I'd be like a seafoam green.
Ooh.
That's probably wrong though. I'd be a seafoam green, but lots of sand in it.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Well, so you're both dirty.
Kind of.
You both just have
We're just
dirt all over. Yeah.
exactly. We're just speckled with filth.
Yeah.
That's who we are. But we're nice underneath if you get through the dirt. That's what matters. But I think your answer is the best. Pastel. And that does say a lot about you. And keeping it light,
Nice.
we're going to guess your age. So it's a whole segment. Because we've talked about it before. We're like, we have no idea how old this guy is. So what we want to do is we each want to give a guess for how old you are. And then we want you to tell us which of us is closer and then tell us your actual age. Would you be comfortable with that?
Yeah, and it's actually something very interesting because I've never thought it was that ambiguous, but the more and more people I get watching, the more I get comments that are just like bewildered, and I'm like, really? So I'm excited to hear your guesses here.
All right, Chris, I'm scared, but I think I'm going to have you go first because I think my guess is super wrong, but I want to know where you lie on the spectrum.
In one of your latest videos, you said you just turned 25, or you were going to. And I don't believe that. But I don't think it's that wrong. So I'm going to go with 28.
Hello.
Okay, Josh.
I'm trying to think because I'm trying to like keep some things and like put some things into account where you got like 400 videos. Like you've been around for a while, you know, but you look young, but your hair's like gray. So, I'm gonna cut in low, Chris. I'm gonna say 24.
And you're closer, Josh.
That's right, Chris.
I
He's
knew
not
it.
a liar.
I'm the big 2'5". I just turned it in February.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my
know.
god.
It's the gray hair just throws people off so much. It's all natural. I don't dye it. It's just
No way.
Yeah. It's just went gray early. I started getting grays in like high school. Maybe had my first in like middle school. But
That's so cool, though.
That is
yeah,
really cool.
yeah. But it's so funny to me because some people are like, he could be 40 or 20. I'm like, 40? Really? I'm like, maybe on a like bad day I could pass as 30 something, you know, if I in the right lighting with my grays popping. But I'm like, 40? Really?
Wow.
Just disrespecting you.
Yeah.
I mean, you look great. It's
My
not,
original
I'm not
guess
saying
was
that you don't look
32.
good or you look old or anything. I'm just saying
No. I'm not offended.
Distinguished.
I embrace the gray. I don't think much of it.
no, it looks great.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, like in elementary, middle school, I just loved waking up on Saturdays at like, 5 a.m. to watch anime. Mm-hmm. And, the characters that had the gray hair or the characters that had like a little gray in their hair, they were always like the ones I wanted to be. I almost dyed my hair gray multiple times as a child with bleach, which may have killed me.
I can't
So
think
I'm glad I didn't do it.
I can't think of a specific character, but I know the type of character you're talking about. They're kind of like the dark and mysterious ones, right? Like the the ones that are
That's
like,
right.
yeah, and they got like the streaks.
It was
of
my
gray.
dream.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, you lived my dream, so thanks for taking that from me.
Yeah, of course. happy to steal dreams.
That's good.
Wow.
That's good. That's my wife too. So, all right, I got another one for you. If you couldn't be a YouTube celebrity, what would you be?
It depends. Like, because YouTube's my happy place. That's why I put in all the work to be on YouTube. And even like my skills as a filmmaker, I want to use them on YouTube. So I don't see myself doing that somewhere else. So if I did, I think there's like an extreme answer, which is like, I don't know, a farmer, just like on like a big plot of land with like 6 dogs and just like growing crops. I think that's the extreme answer, but the obvious answer is just something else in art. Like I like drawing, maybe be some illustrator. I like I like writing poems. I don't think I'd ever make a career out of that, but poetry's fun. And yeah, probably something in the arts still.
Wow.
Oh, I love that. It was a very
really
good
interesting.
answer. It was a very good answer.
Thank you.
Poetry's cool. Like
Didn't
poetry's hard, man. At least for me.
Well, for me, what I like is it's the closest like writing can come to improv, because it can be very like stream of consciousness, and
sure.
I don't see myself writing a novel because you really got to sit down and hammer it out. But poetry, I just do in like my notes app on my phone or something like that. Lying in bed at night, you just toss something together, and I think it boils back to the improv, because all my films are improv. So I think that's just something in my blood. I don't like thinking too much.
Yeah, for sure.
I like just subconsciously letting whatever pours out, and I think that lends itself to poetry.
Nice.
I love that. What got you into the improv? Like what sparked that in you as a kid? Because I imagine it happened when you were younger.
I think it's kind of what everyone does when they're a kid and they grab a camera and goof around with their friends. You don't really write a script as a kid. You don't plan stuff out. You just say, oh, you say this stupid line, you say this, back and forth, and I continued that through high school, and then I went to film school and at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and it was I loved the people I met. I have a lot of lasting friendships from there. And but there was this initial pressure to be like, okay, be a more regimented, is that the right word? Regimented filmmaker.
Yeah.
Just,
one of those.
One of those words. And like write scripts, cast, do this. And it made me less and less excited to make something. So then there was a lot of unlearning I did to get where I am now, where it's just like, get that energy back of grabbing a camera and just goofing around with your friends, get that energy back, that like you did this just for fun all those years, like keep that alive, right?
Yeah.
And I think the second you start writing a script and like worrying about like making the perfect thing, there is a loss of fun. And it sounds almost childish, but I guess that's the point, that it's childish to just be like, I want this to be as fun as it can be. I don't want this to feel like work every step of the way. Like the editing can feel like work, but I don't want like shooting to feel like work,
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. No, I think that's good advice to like anybody doing, anything creative, I think it's really easy to get caught up in, I don't know, the details or whatever, but I think you're right. I love that. That's good. We only got a couple more of these get to know you questions. This one is very personal to me. Which movie traumatized you most as a child? This could be read as like, which movie should your parents have not let you watch as a child? But either or. And if nothing comes immediately to mind, Chris or I can go first, because I know that these are all being sprung on you.
Oh yeah, I think you guys go first because I'm trying to choose one.
Oh, you have to choose from so many. I can go first if you want, Chris. Do you mind? So I think I might have said this on the podcast before, but I remember that I was like 7 years old or something, and my sister is 3 years older than me, so she was 9 or 10 for all those who can't add like me. But she was very scared of like just scary movies in general. She's always been terrified of anything with like gore or action. And I think that this movie was like a step way too far for her, and as a result, it was a step way too far for me. And the movie is Aliens, the sequel to Alien. My dad loves anything sci-fi, Orson Scott Card, Asimov. He loves it. It's his favorite thing in the world. And Aliens is like his popcorn flick version. So he really wanted us to watch it. And he has this weird thing where he really wants us to feel like to be able to confront our fears or whatever. So he was trying to force my sister to watch this, and I was just there forgotten, essentially, because he was trying so hard to get her to enjoy it. And the only way he was able to get her to do it was by putting it on in Spanish. But none of us speak Spanish. My dad doesn't speak Spanish. We didn't speak Spanish. And so it was just this hellish, like, 2-hour experience of, like, acid blood and death and, like, Spanish being screamed at me, and every once in a while a cat.
So he was so desperate to show you guys that he didn't care that, like, you didn't take in the plot. He's like, I just want them to see this horrifying alien.
I want you to suffer.
He wanted us to grow, Joel.
Oh, okay.
He wanted us to grow. But yeah, for me, it just traumatized me. And I remember, like, you know, when you're in like a dark hallway as a kid going up to bed or, you know, crossing the house, I remember like running up the stairs, because we had stairs at the time, and it was like, you know, turning off the light at the bottom and running up, and like in my head I could just see the xenomorphs like nipping at my heels, although I don't know what they were at the time, like something in Spanish in my head, but but yeah, just like they're just gonna drag me down to hell or whatever. It was horrifying. So that's the movie that formed me into the fearful little mouse man that I am today.
I like it.
What about you, Christopher?
My parents never, I mean, my parents weren't like yours. Your
parents had you see everything.
That is true. But they weren't like forcing me to watch something to scare me.
Tell me, girl.
So
I love you, Dad.
I think it's called Watership Down. And it's that cartoon from like the 70s with the rabbits. I don't know. Have you heard of it, Joel?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
It's like, I don't remember anything from the plot. We just had the VHS for some awful reason. And it was just like the scariest fever dream I could imagine for a child, where like these rabbits are killing and raping each other in their dens. And that's all I remember from it.
And they're being killed.
Yeah.
You remember the harvester scene?
No.
The harvester like comes and like rips up their home and like kills them. Yeah. Maybe I'm thinking of a different movie, but it was horrifying.
But that's all I really remember from it.
That's one of those things that's an animation, but it's not technically a kid's movie, but kids like accidentally watch it, right?
Yeah.
You
think it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, oh, look at this.
Death.
Yeah.
Death and despair.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess my answer is not a movie, but if there's one like piece of media that scared me, it's do you know the Slab episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog? Where the guy's like return the slab, and he's like outside, and he's this creepy like half 2D, half 3D,
yes.
And
yes,
he's like, return the slab or suffer my curse. But the Courage could do it for me. And what else? The only thing that came to mind was E.T. I remember when I was 8 or something.
Yeah.
I was staying at someone's house, and my brother and I were watching it, and we just hated it. We hated E.T. It was just like terrifying. Just the like E.T. himself, just everything he did was just gross to us at the time.
how have your feelings evolved towards E.T.? Do you like him more now, or do you still just feel disgusted?
I don't know. I haven't revisited it since I was a kid. That's one I need to watch again for sure.
Interesting. We almost did one on it, and I watched it recently, and I was like, man, this movie sucks. Like, I did not like it.
Yeah. Depending on my mood, Spielberg is either like the comfort food I need, or it pisses me off.
Yeah.
I feel you.
No,
I feel you, man. I think that is true.
Yeah. Because he can be good. He can be good. He provides good entertainment, but sometimes he provides some things that feel a bit schmaltzy and hokey, and they miss the mark. Yeah.
You're the only one brave enough to say it.
I feel like he can definitely be too sentimental at times.
And you can hear him in the script sometimes. And some things that are said, you're just like, that was a Spielberg, okay. I agree with
He's
you.
like the lines that are supposed to be cool are the ones that are supposed to break your heart. You know, it's like it feels planned. It feels premeditated at times. Like, this is the line. This is
And I feel like they just go on too long. You know, like he'll say something and it's like, that suffices. And he'll be like, But if you're dumb, let me explain it further. And I'll just like keep going and keep going.
The exposition disguised as like an epic monologue,
Yes.
or like, but it's
That's as Spielbergian
heart-wrenching.
as it gets.
Yeah.
But we have
But it's hard to even point to Spielbergisms nowadays because everyone in Hollywood has just embraced his entire style, and that's every blockbuster for the last 30 years, you know. So
Exactly.
it's hard to point to stuff as Spielberg because he just invented the expensive movie.
he is, or Hollywood is Spielberg now.
He is the expensive movie.
Oh,
He is the yeah.
he's just enveloped everything.
Yeah.
And I have one more question for you before we start heading into the movie. We have a tradition on the show where we describe whatever we're going to talk about in just 3 words. But I'd like you to describe yourself in just 3 words.
Ooh.
Hello.
So my mind wants to come up with like a clever phrase, but I guess the easier thing to do is just 3 separate words, right?
It's whatever you want. Like if you'd like us to show you, we can as well. We are glad to do whatever.
I'll try it. I guess romantic, which is a weird one. Improv, filmmaker.
I love it.
I think that
Bada
those
bing,
three
bada
sum it
boom.
up.
You did it.
That was great.
It's perfect.
I want to hear more about
Yeah.
this romantic, like a hopeless romantic, or what do you mean? Tell me about this.
More like in all walks. Like my favorite movies have love in them. My favorite every media songs are about love, and I love being in love, and I love loving people and having people love me, whether that's romantic love or just a love you have with a friend.
Yeah.
And so I think romantic covers that. And improv is more than just my work. I think, you know, the way I live my life, I'm very like flying by the seat of my pants
Spontaneous
in
and
a lot of
stuff.
ways. Yeah, spontaneous. So, and then filmmaker is such a big part of every day of my life that I guess I had to include that.
I guess. No, I love it, man. I think that's
I
I
love
think
that.
that's
That's
perfect.
awesome.
You've built quite a character
Yeah.
for yourself, you know, the soft pastels and the romantic. I think you're going to be getting a lot of calls after this podcast.
I know. I was hoping to use this as some sort of dating profile or something.
That's what we do. It's our job.
Yep.
Just throw my address in the description. Anyone could come and see.
Please do. We mostly have single females that watch our podcasts
Perfect.
since our wives don't. So no, but yeah, call Joel, everybody. And I got one more question, but this just leads straight into the Fantastic Mr. Fox, which for all those who have already forgotten what our topic is because we haven't mentioned it at all, that's what it is. This is the question. This will say another thing about you. If you could be, or if you were, rather, if you were an animal in the Fantastic Mr. Fox universe, which animal would you be? Since animals are pretty much just people. I mean, they even speak English to the people in this movie. But you had to be an animal. So which one
Yeah.
would you be?
I would choose definitely not one of the chickens because those are just chickens.
I know, right?
Or what was it? What was it? The pheasants? There
The
was
squab.
What were the squab? No, so definitely a mammal in the universe because I would actually have a consciousness and
A sophisticated
and,
life of some kind.
You would get to, like,
yeah.
not be a tree, essentially. Yes, that's good.
I like the foxes. It's hard not to just go with the basic fox because I think they're probably the coolest. Everyone else was kind of lame. I felt like in a classic like Wes Anderson way, but
Yeah, I love that.
all the other characters, yeah, yeah, they're all kind of like dorky in their own regard. Maybe it's just the George Clooney suaveness that has won me over to the fox. But yeah, I'd be a fox, I think.
I love it. What about you, Chris?
Yeah.
Did George Clooney get you to choose to be a fox?
He got me to do a lot of things, but it wasn't that. I gotta either be a badger or a possum, man.
Hello.
I feel like if you could somehow merge a badger and a possum, that's where you'd find me.
I think that would just be like a badger with a concussion. A concussed badger.
That's me.
That's me.
That's me.
Oh man, I love that. I don't know what I would be. This sounds lame, but I feel like I would also just be a fox. I feel like it's hard to not be a fox.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely the coolest of the bunch. You know, possums are kind of just broken, like, animals. They're just, like, not quite working.
You're just describing me, Joel.
Just, broken inside, unable to connect.
Yeah.
Unable to control their finances. Actually, the possum is very in control of his finances, now that I think about it. Titanium.
That's right.
But,
Yeah.
And I feed you good
minnows.
food. So
That's right.
Minnows, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if I had to choose something that wasn't a fox, I think I'd be specifically that one mole that says he wants to see the sun. And then he's like, you're nocturnal. He's like, stop putting words in my mouth. Or like, stop twisting my words. I'd be that guy. I'd be that mole. I don't get out enough, so.
Yeah.
But let's
Perfect.
launch right into Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's very exciting. It's a good movie. I'll try to give a really brief synopsis of what it is. It's a classic Wes Anderson film. It's all done in stop motion. The main character is a fox named Mr. Fox. Do you guys know his actual name, or they just call him Foxy?
I think it's
I think just Foxy.
Foxy
Yeah.
Fox.
Foxy Fox. And so Foxy Fox is a bird thief, which is for some reason like a respectable job in this universe that he can like tell people about and they're okay with it. It's like the same as being a columnist or like a writer for a newspaper. Anyway, so he's a bird stealer, and he's doing this until his wife tells him that she's pregnant. And so she tells him he needs to get out of the game and do something safer. They do, but after 12 fox years, he is restless and he wants to explore that more animalistic side of himself again and feel like a man. So he goes out, he starts stealing birds, but this mistake causes, or mistake, maybe it's not a mistake, that's kind of part of the movie, right? But this decision of his brings terror down upon his community. Almost everyone is, pushed out of their homes, they're living in the sewer, and it causes a ton of misfortune. And pretty much the rest of the movie is him trying to make things right and trying to defeat these farmers who are terrorizing his family, who he stole from. That's a super brief synopsis, but just for those who haven't seen the film, that's the basic rundown. Everyone else all the other characters are animals, his family, and these farmers that he stole from. But Chris, would you like to kick us off with some questions that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, of course. Beautiful synopsis, by the way.
That's what
So
I do.
concise.
What I do.
I was just kind of thinking because I woke up at 2 a.m. last night and I watched the movie twice to get prepared for this podcast. And it was the first time I've ever seen it. And Joel, this is not your first time, right?
No, I saw it once in high school, and rewatching it now, it felt like the first time because a lot of it
Same.
was
Perfect.
like fresh to me. Yeah.
So I kind of want to just get a general feeling for this movie from the two of you. Like, I'll start with Joel. How did you feel about this movie? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it whimsical to you? Is it fantastic?
What's hard for me is I have a hard time viewing a Wes Anderson film in a bubble rather than like in context of all of his work, because they're very similar. That's kind of the shtick with him. He has a style and he sticks to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'm always like pitting them against each other in a weird way because I love a lot of his movies. I really do. And then so it's hard to watch one and not in my head be constantly assessing it in his body of work, which I guess is maybe a bad way to approach it. But if I were to just look at the film, I think, yes, it's like clearly like super beautiful and well crafted and charming. It's got his writing, and it's funny because it's one of those animated movies that maybe we were just talking about where it doesn't really feel like a kid's movie. You know, there was moments when I was watching it, I'm like, I don't think kids would like this. You know, I think it's too
Yeah.
dry and too adult for like a kid to really wrap their head around. And I think it's like PG-13 too, so it's not technically trying to be a kid's movie, but it definitely felt a little too mature at times. And I have you guys seen Isle of Dogs as well?
No, that's one that we actually want to do after this movie at some point.
All right, it's worth watching as well, but it had the same thing. I remember leaving like, who is this for? And then I think the answer comes back to it's for Wes Anderson fans. You know,
Yeah.
You know what you're gonna get with his movies, so you're gonna enjoy an animation by him regardless, right?
No, I love what you're saying, because I think that you could say that about like most Wes Anderson movies, even like the non-animated ones. Like Moonrise Kingdom is probably my favorite Wes Anderson movie, but like it's like the main actors are kids. But like I'm not sure it's a kids movie either. You know, it's just like,
Yeah.
it's like all of his movies are just using like this childish imagery, but like to tell an adult story, and that's confusing for kids. I remember watching this movie when I was a kid, and I didn't like it at all. I remember mostly just totally forgetting it. Like people would talk about it around me. Like my wife's brother loves this movie. His ringtone is the whistle click click that I can't do because I'm inept and can't whistle. But you know, it's George Clooney's thing that he always does. So
Why are you not George Clooney, Josh?
I am. Besides the whistle click click, Chris. Of course. By the way, can I say something super quick about George Clooney in this movie? I know we're gonna get to that, and this is probably not what you expect. But this movie, is it not just Ocean's 11 but with animals? Does like George Clooney have a thing for like heists and stuff? Because we just watched Ocean's 11 last night. It's one of my wife's like favorite movies or whatever. And I was like, wait a second. This is just the same movie. This is like the Fantastic Mr. Fox, but it's like with people instead of animals. It was very odd.
They even have this scene where they're like choosing all the people's roles and like what they're best at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was very surprising. I was like, oh my gosh, I had no clue. But anyways, very interesting little George Clooney tidbit there.
It's very astute of you, Josh.
I'm an astute guy. Something else I have in common with Clooney. But yeah, how do I feel about this movie? You know, this is one of those movies where, just apart from Wes Anderson, apart from, you know, I guess the body of work that this movie lives in, it's one of those movies that I feel is not, like, the whole is not as good as the sum. Does that make sense? Like, I love the parts of this movie. Like, I love the stop motion. I love the characterization. I love the voice actors. I love the way everything looks. But at the end of the movie, I'm just, like, kind of left feeling cold and, like, confused by the movie. I don't know if that makes sense. Just like really conflicted by it. I don't know why though. Some movies you just leave and you're like, oh, that was wonderful. But I left this and I was like, okay. It's like in the middle.
It's an interesting thought.
How did you feel, Chris? Because I feel like you were in a different camp, I feel. I sense this from you.
I feel like I am. It's I mean, I kind of agree with Joel here when you compare a Wes Anderson movie, you can't really just do it in a bubble. You have to compare it with Life Aquatic and the Royal Tenenbaums and Moonrise Kingdom, which I love Moonrise Kingdom as well. It's one of the movies that Josh and I actually bonded with. I think we watched it like 3 times.
On the futon.
Together. On the futon.
Back in the day.
But no, I kind of agree with you too, Josh, because there's like this first half of the movie, or like there's some scenes in the beginning where I'm kind of like, this doesn't really need to be here. But at the same time, like, this movie is such a labor of love and passion, and so much work is going into each second of a scene that I can't help but feel that maybe, and with a very wonderful runtime of like only an hour and 26 minutes or so, it's a perfect time. I don't feel like there's a wasted scene in this movie. And I really like the themes of it. And I think it ends on a good note where, spoiler alert, Mr. Fox has had closure and understands that he is not the wild animal that he thought he wanted to be, and that what he really wanted was a sophisticated lifestyle of being a reporter or whatever, a columnist, and he wants the family, and he wants.
But
to
he
just
still
live in his
steals a
bubble.
little.
It still
Yeah.
steals a
Still
little bit.
steals a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little bit,
Yeah.
but I mean, I really like this movie.
I'm glad.
I liked it a lot the second time around.
Yeah. I think I liked it a
Took me
little
a
more the
second
second
viewing.
time I watched it as well. Because I watched it twice leading up to this too.
Okay.
I put in the work.
I'm actually kind of with you, Josh, in that there's something that I feel is missing by the end. And no, I don't have that feeling leaving the Royal Tenenbaums or Moonrise Kingdom. It feels like like you said, that the parts are all great, but they add up to like something that feels almost incomplete. Like, I love the runtime. I love a movie that's done in less than an hour and a half. You know, it's so easy to turn on a movie like that. Anything
Yeah.
above like 2 hours, it's like, God, when do I fit this?
I have to
You're
plan.
like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is a thing to it that it feels like it could have been 20 minutes longer and like kind of flesh out something. Because by the end, I didn't feel the arc as much. You know,
Yeah.
I felt like they saved Kristoff, right? That's the cousin.
Mm-hmm.
They saved him, and that was that. Like, like the farmers just stopped chasing after them for some reason. It's like they saved them, get away. They're like, that's what the last time they interact with the farmers, right? Other than stealing from their grocery store, but like, I just felt like a little wrapped up without any wrapping, you know. It's just like it ended, and I'm like, why wouldn't they keep chasing them? They got the fox.
They're in their grocery store. Right?
Yeah.
I agree. I think that for me, it's a resolution problem. Like with the arc of the entire narrative, like you said, where it's like, well, I don't feel like this story's actually over. And also, I don't know if I'm all the way... I love the idea of Foxy's, whatever his name is, George Clooney. I love the idea of George Clooney's like character arc, but I'm not sure it's like obvious enough for like the great majority of people to get. Like, I think his final toast is pretty hard to understand. Like, I watched that scene like 6 times, like, okay, so the apple has stars. Like, you know, I'm not really sure about his character arc and like his resolution, like what he learned, if that makes sense. Like, did he actually learn anything? Like, he just kept doing the thing that almost got his community killed like the entire time, and he never like changed. I don't know if that makes sense. It just like really didn't sit
That's a good
super
point.
well with me. I get that it's like good that he can be a wild animal and civilized, if that makes sense, but like, I don't know, like one part of him caused a whole lot of problems for a whole lot of people, and he never like really does anything about it. He's just like, no, just do it more. Just do it more. Now we'll rob the entire store, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it makes sense. And that's something that I was wrestling with. I was like, what do we learn from this? Right? Like, and maybe it's that if you could get away with doing what you love, do it. You know, if you...
Run while you can.
Yeah.
It's a good message for maybe kids and adults. That's good. Thank you, Wes
Maybe
Anderson. Yeah, okay,
Well,
I'm
like,
glad
when
I'm
he
not
was
the only
making
one.
his
though.
toast. Oh, sorry.
No, Dime, tell me. Sorry.
He was talking about how artificial all these new things he had was, like the linoleum floors or whatever, and how the apples have stars and how they're just a little bit different. Maybe that, like, what does that mean? Maybe I'm
I don't
confused
know.
still.
I
totally forgot about the whole toast scene, to be honest with you.
Because there's like, also when you said toast, I thought you were talking about the original scene where he eats the toast, and I was very confused for a moment, but now I understand what you meant. but Because there's also the message that it's okay to be different for Ash, right? And it's like, it's okay that you're different. It's okay to be small, whatever. And it's okay for Kristoff to meditate. But then but yeah, it's just like the two messages. And I just felt the movie was a little bit confusing. Overall good, but just confusing in that way. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but.
And it's not like I'm usually watching a Wes Anderson movie dissecting all the lessons. And I just think it's because in the other ones, it just feels a little more obvious. Like you subconsciously get what the film wants you to get. Mm-hmm. And this just feels like, okay, I had a fun time, but what, like, it doesn't answer that question. Like, did it satisfy all the arcs? Did it satisfy that nagging, like, thing in your subconscious? Like, that was concise. That I don't think this one quite hits that. And I know it's just like, I don't know, maybe to him it was just a fun story. Like maybe he wasn't trying to impart any sort of lesson on even his characters, you know, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. We got to have
maybe the realm of
No, you go.
I'm sorry.
You get.
I was just going to say maybe the realm of animation kind of allowed him this freedom to detach from reality enough to be like, we can just tell a story. We don't need lessons and punishments for our characters, or you know, or like hard life lessons. And yeah, I'm not sure.
I guess we have to have Wes Anderson on next week, guys. It's the only solution. But I love what you're saying about you know, I can't remember the exact words you said, but just the idea that this is animation. He doesn't necessarily have to tell like some Oscar-worthy, you know, Schindler's List story. And I'm curious about that for you guys. What story did the animation tell for you? Like, what impacted the animation, the stop motion, the just everything that Wes Anderson did to make the movie look like it does? How did that affect you guys? Starting.
You want to go first, Chris?
Yeah, starting with Chris.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. It's a very warm, like, are you talking about the aesthetics and
I would say both,
the design of everything?
Yeah, the design, the aesthetics, the stop motion, the animation itself.
I don't know what that gave off to me. I mean, it makes me think it's a Thanksgiving movie, which maybe it is, maybe it's not.
A fall film,
There's
perhaps?
multiple feasts.
There are feasts. Toasts.
And it's interesting that they didn't use any like greens or blues, because that would have given off a cooler or colder aesthetic.
It's because George Clooney's so hot.
That's right. It's I don't know. It's kind of weird because it looks like such a cozy, warm movie, but it deals with some deeper themes. I mean, it's the whole thing about like this. It looks like it's for a kid, but it's probably not. I don't know.
I agree.
It's odd. It's an odd movie.
I agree.
In that way, in that sense, you know. What about you, Joel?
I think it's a double-edged sword for me because I had a similar experience with Isle of Dogs, where the animation, you know, Wes Anderson is like notoriously particular, right? Like with the symmetry, with, you know, the like perpendicular camera where it's like dead on with like walls and everything.
Yeah.
Or parallel, maybe that is. Just and the like movements sideways, backwards. He's very particular, and so in moments I feel like the animation is just allowing him to be full on control freak. You know, like
you gave him too much.
Like it almost goes too far, and it both really complements his style because it's like, of course, his stuff is already like a children's book. You know, especially his later stuff like Moonrise Kingdom and Grand Budapest already has that essence of almost animation.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost so far detached from reality. And in that regard, animation is a logical step for him, I think. And I could see why he returned to it, because it does give him such precise control over every like second. And there's a part of me that I'm just like, when is that controlled too much? And I think that quite literally ties into the problem with themes and characters, and that's that you lose that real, not only in like the fact that it's animated, but in the fact that it is so like strictly controlled. You lose any of that human error, any of that like other people seeping into the project. Because I always say, like, I love Rushmore. That's one of my favorite Wes Anderson movies. And Jason Schwartzman is so key to that movie. Like he played. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it.
I have not.
But he's really great. He's definitely worth watching. He's like so imperative to it that like the movie would be different without him. And the second like you just turn all the actors into voices, it feels like anyone could be anyone. Like I feel like a guy like Wes Anderson, his cast of characters is so colorful, and that's usually like just as much due to the actors. And in Fantastic Mr. Fox, I didn't feel that human element. I didn't feel we needed George Clooney, or we needed who else is it? Jason Schwartzman, or we I didn't feel we needed them in the parts as much as I felt in his live action.
Nice. That's interesting. So that kind of has to do with a question I was going to ask later about like whether you think, I mean, you said it right there, right? That it's not necessary that they had these huge actors that are kind of outside of Wes's posse of people that are always with him, But how do you feel about like George Clooney's performance, Meryl Streep's performance? I kind of agree with you that, I mean, George Clooney has a great voice, but I kind of agree that I don't know if it really benefited from these like high profile actors being in it. I don't know.
I'm not sure. I think the problem is Wes Anderson. So his line delivery so specific, right?
Yes.
That
it's like Woody Allen.
And when it boils down to an animated movie where it's just line delivery and there's none of that body performance, it's like he's so good at getting what he wants. I don't know if it needed to be famous people,
Yeah, he could just force them to do it over and over till it was what he wanted.
Yeah.
Speaking of stilted lines, or not stilted lines, but lines in a particular style, were there any scenes or lines that you guys just really liked, or that you didn't like, or that stuck out to you? I know that for me, I think my favorite scene in the movie is when they're in the chemistry lab, and Ash is trying to get Agnes, I think is her name, the female fox. He's trying to get her to give him stuff, and she keeps getting distracted because she thinks Christopherson's cute or whatever. And there's a part where he says, "You're not my lab partner," and she says, "I am your lab partner." And he says, "No, you're not. You're disloyal." And then it just like cuts. It's like the most Wes Anderson like cut in line I've ever heard in my life. But I was like, that is Wes Anderson. It's like so distinct, But I thought that was great. Every once in a while it really shines through. Was there anything for you guys that really stuck out that you guys liked or maybe didn't, perhaps?
Chris, anything?
Chris, you watched this movie twice. What's wrong with you? You didn't. Nothing stuck out to you. You animal. You wild animal.
I love Willem Dafoe's lines after he perishes, or when he's about to, and he says, "Tastes like melted gold."
Dang.
I love that line.
Man, you're right, Joel. He could have had Wes Anderson could have just had Chris do it. That was perfect.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
He just pulled it out of you.
That might be one of my favorite scenes too, when he gets this very sudden, almost forced redemption, but it's very tongue in cheek. It's very tongue in cheek. I think
he's just a dead rat behind a Chinese restaurant.
I think the kid even says he redeemed himself.
Yeah,
that's really funny. He redeemed himself just by like giving a dramatic deathbed speech and telling them the address. It was really funny. What does
Kylie the possum say? He's like, he went bananas.
He went bananas.
He went bananas.
Yes, he did.
He went bananas.
I think Kylie's probably my favorite character. I think he was super funny,
sorry.
Chris. Now you guys go.
Yeah. I think in the world of writing, it's like that to me is Wes Anderson above his style. I think like people get obsessed with the style to a point where that becomes the whole conversation, right? That's just like that's how he makes a movie. But I think the writing is so much more important than his style because he's so good at characters and dialogue and having those perfect lines that are a little weird or like not quite what you'd expect, and it just makes you laugh. You know, his stuff is often hilarious. You know, I don't think this movie's much different. It's still really funny, but I think the thing is, if you removed his style, like his aesthetics, the movies would still work with the scripts. But if you removed the scripts, they would just be kind of hollow visual pieces. You know, so I think that's the sign that his writing is doing a lot more than people give it credit for.
No,
I totally agree.
Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
How dare you? No, please continue.
No, I just agree. I think that's definitely my favorite part of Wes Anderson movies. It's going to lead into another question, but I think that for me, what I've always liked about Wes Anderson, while I do like his visual style, obviously, has just been the scripts. I love the way the lines are delivered, even if they are maybe at gunpoint by Wes behind the camera. I love the style, and I think they're hilarious. There's a bunch of lines like that are just super dry, and you know, these stilted conversations that are just hilarious. But speaking of Wes Anderson's body of work, kind of to end our small conversation about Fantastic Mr. Fox, where do you guys feel like this fits into his body of work? I know we've tried to look at it, you know, from a different perspective, just as a singular piece, but do you feel like, where do you think it, I hate to say the word ranks, but where do you think it like ranks and is among his different movies that you guys have seen?
So you guys haven't seen Rushmore, but you've seen like Moonrise and Royal Tenenbaums. And
Yeah.
have you? Because I think for me, the animations, everything he makes is pretty well done. Is good. It's a good, like everything he makes is good. But I think the animations go below all the live action for me. And it's just that loss of that human element. I think it feels like control freak is a bit of a mean term, but it feels like a control freak who has taken full control in the animations. And it's a good thing that control freak is talented and funny and good at what he does. But the live action just they stick with me more.
Yeah.
You know, because I saw Fantastic Mr. Fox when I was in high school, and I pretty well forgot it, right? I don't think I remembered much of it. And I feel stepping away now that it once again, I enjoyed it more, but it didn't leave me that much to cling on to. And I'm always going to remember, like, all of his other movies have at least like 4 moments that I just can't forget, you know, no matter how long I've seen them. And I can't point to a moment like that. Like, it's hard to say because it's so fresh, because I just watched it, I think, 2 days ago. But I can't point to a moment like that in a year I'll be confident it's still going to be with me.
No,
For sure.
I understand.
I agree with what you're saying, and something that just comes to mind is we have one connection between both movies besides Wes Anderson, and it's we have Bill Murray playing the Badger, and then we have Bill Murray in Moonrise Kingdom. And when you put Bill Murray into a Badger, you lose all of his mannerisms
He doesn't seem very Bill Murray
human
in this
nature.
movie.
Exactly, and like even Owen Wilson as the coach, I'm not going to remember him as Owen Wilson. I'm going to think of an otter.
Yeah,
You know?
and Meryl Streep didn't even come off as, you know, the Meryl Streep.
I had no idea it was Meryl Streep.
I would never know if I didn't like watch the credits.
I think you're touching upon what we already said, but pointing a finger at why it doesn't work as well. And that's because these famous people have so much associated with their look and how they sell a performance. And you know, like I don't think I even knew it was Meryl Streep. I think I had the thought in my head, like, is that Meryl Streep? But like George Clooney obviously is George Clooney. Owen Wilson is obvious. You know, like you hear the voices and you're missing that other part of this person. And in a way you wouldn't be if it was a voice you never heard before. You know?
Yeah. Where like Ash and Christopherson, I think, have more character, have more personality, and they're like relatively unknown actors. So
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, they worked a lot better for me.
Me too.
I didn't know it was Meryl Streep until she said contact at the very end of the movie. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Meryl Streep. And I don't know if this is like a hot take or anything, but I'm not a fan of Meryl Streep.
Whoa, we got a Meryl
But I
Streep
thought she was
hater
amazing in this until I found out that it was her.
and then I hated her.
Then you hated the movie.
I was like, oh, it's Meryl Streep.
Gosh.
There's one.
It's always interesting. I'm sorry.
No,
you're
maybe this is getting too far off. But there is something interesting to me because Wes Anderson does have such a troupe of people, you know, like, and they go from movie to movie and they're always in it. And then you have like an odd one out, like George Clooney is not in any of his other movies. Why is he suddenly in this one? And Meryl Streep, like they're not in his other stuff. And maybe it's just scheduling conflicts or he never wrote a part for them. But like, it's just weird to see because somebody who like Bill Murray's in almost every movie, at least a little. And then like, you have another actor like that just pop in and pop out. So
it's weird.
That's strange.
So,
I wonder if he thought he needed George Clooney and Meryl Streep.
I have no idea.
During that time, you know, it was 2009, so
Royal Tenenbaums was
sure they were
his
pretty
only
big.
film that had been big at that point, I think, because Life Aquatic didn't do very well. I don't even know how he landed this because this was like a $30 million project. It was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Stop motion. I mean, this is the most base level conversation ever, but I can't wrap my head around stop motion. That's insanity.
Have you ever thought about doing it for a video?
I did like Lego stop motion as a kid. You know, that stuff that like you just move the Legos. But even then that takes forever and it's so simplistic. And that's a thought I had while watching this. You know, the shots that have multiple characters? I'm curious if like they animate all the characters in frame by frame together or if they just composite them after the fact, you know, and do one by one.
I don't know.
Because the thought in my head of having to keep track of like every character in the group shots.
Yeah.
That was like driving me mad. I'm like, God, that must have been so hard.
What blew my mind was the close-ups, and I loved the close-ups. They were actually some of my favorite shots, just right in, you know, Foxy's face or whatever. The way the fur was constantly moving, like between shots. Yeah. It's like, did they have a fur guy that was just like moving the fur like every shot? I don't know. And maybe, I don't know if they had like multiple puppeteers or if it was just one dude.
I'm sure they did.
That was just like super.
That would be insane.
I know.
I don't know that well, but I have heard that most stop motion scenes are so particular that they do just have one person do all the animation.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Like, because you see the time lapses. I'm not sure if you've seen them for like movies like Kubo or something. You know, where like the person is just one person doing it because it's just so much to keep track of.
Yeah.
Like mentally, like
wow.
Like yeah. So it must. I'm not sure if this movie's different, but I'm sure the team that builds all the puppets and everything in the sets is huge. But then, like, as you get to the animation itself, I think it simplifies a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. You know, puppeteer was high on my list of professions to go into, but it just dropped down real low. You crushed my dreams again, Joel. That's crazy, though. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, I think I read that it took them an entire day to get 30 seconds done.
That's disgusting. Did you guys ever, I don't know if you guys have ever watched Parks and Rec. Have you, Joel?
Yeah,
The scene with Ben?
I haven't, but I know the scene. I haven't watched the show, but I've seen the scene.
It's like, I spent 2 weeks on that.
It's got the REM song,
Yeah.
Standing, and then it just like cuts.
Oh my gosh, it's like, it's going to be a masterpiece. No. But yeah, that's what I think of whenever I think of stop motion. Like, and that's why I'm not doing it. Too much work. Also, I'm not talented, but insane. These people are just,
Yeah.
I admire the artistry, but also just their like tenacity that they're able to actually keep at something like that. I would definitely quit after like, 400 frames. This is crazy to me. But
And I think that's where the movie almost saves itself, because like there is that thing where like the actors feel less important, but there is this new thing where it's like, unless Wes was like a huge part of the modeling and animating team, which I don't know if he was involved in that regard, there is this thing where it's like, okay, this is clearly at least the hands and voices of other creators as well, because it has to be a big team pulling that together, and people who have specializations that Wes probably doesn't even know how to do, like stop motion. And so I think that style almost saves it all together in a way that if it were like 2D or like like a computer animation, I don't think it would have worked as well.
Oh, I agree. I think you're right. The opportunity for the collaboration to kind of shine through in this movie, I think that you're right. That's kind of what saves it in my eyes too. It's just the way the visuals stick with me, and the puppets and just all that stuff. But Chris, is there anything else you want to say about it? Or Joel, is there anything else you want to say about the movie before we kind of go into a small just conversation with you, trying to ask about how you've gotten to where you are? I don't know if I have anything else to say to Wes. I think Wes has gotten all he's going to have from me. But
I thought it was very interesting. Maybe it's a common thing, but they did all the voice acting on location. I thought that was pretty cool. So like when you see Foxy rolling around in the grass and the leaves, and he does his little whistle click, they were actually doing that and like outside and making him roll around.
How'd they get him to fit into the miniature? I'm just kidding.
I think that actually is a good point too, that it sounded very in the world. And like I've had that complaint, and I've heard that complaint with some other animated movies, that it all just sounds like recording booth, and there was that extra care that you need, like an artist like Wes Anderson to step in and actually give enough of a poop about it to, actually be like, oh yes, we are gonna record all the sound in spaces that convey the spaces of the film.
Could you?
Yeah, I think that was a good touch.
Me too. Could you imagine being the guy that gets to tell Meryl Streep to go down into a sewer and say her lines? That'd be great. You're telling George Clooney, get down on the ground and roll.
More leaves.
I think the last thing I'd say is Wes Anderson's, like, it's only a movie I'm hesitant to like give my full love to because I like his other stuff that much more. In the league of what's coming out of Hollywood at large, his stuff is always just a notch above. He shines through, and Fantastic Mr. Fox, even if it's one of my least favorite of his, is still like a shining example of like an animated movie from the what do they call it? The aughts, 2000s, from the 2000s.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that if it wasn't a Wes Anderson movie, I'd probably feel better about it, which sounds bad, but if it was not associated with all the other movies that I really love by him, I think I would probably be a little bit more positive towards it. So I agree with you. But anything he does is great. And with that, Wes, we leave you, Mr. Anderson. Not the one from The Matrix. But Joel, we have a couple more questions for you, just about you. Is that okay?
Yes, of course. I'm an expert on that.
I hope so.
We'll put you to the test.
We'll test you, so you better actually be true to that. But we just know that a lot of people who are listening to this are going to want to hear about you. They don't care about George Clooney or about these loser celebrities. They want to hear about Joel.
Or Chris Midling.
Who's
Nobody
that?
cares.
Who's that guy? Sounds like he smells. But Chris gave me this question. Very important. He asked, what's the deal with your socks? Or is there a deal with your socks?
I don't mean that in a negative way, by the way. Your socks are very on point, and I just gotta ask, like, what's the deal?
I think it's in high school I took to, especially senior year, I took to dressing very eccentrically, maybe to get attention, but I maybe just to like set myself apart because I never felt like, you know, like a t-shirt and like sweatpants fit me, you know. So I would wear like really colorful button shirts and ties every day, and you know, really dress up, and the socks were a part of that get up, just like not caring if it matched, not caring if, you know, it just and then I kind of toned it back throughout college, but the socks stuck around. I like colorful socks, you know. It makes socks something kind of fun and exciting. Like if I get a pair of colorful socks, I'm actually excited now rather than just like a pack of 6 like white socks, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
So
but the white socks, not you. The colorful ones are great.
yeah.
Have you ever got one of those like subscription services for socks where they send you like a pair of eccentric socks?
Like monthly?
Yeah.
No, I never saw that.
I've always been wanting to do that.
Chris is enamored with the sock service.
Money.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because I'm somebody who will wear like my socks and even regrettably sometimes my underwear until like the last leg. You know, like you got underwear in your drawer that has like holes in it, and you're like, it's under my pants.
It's fine.
So like I feel like monthly socks, unless it's just one pair, would almost be too many. I'm like,
I think it's one pair.
A ridiculous amount of socks.
I'm like, these things still got. For me, I'm like, these things still got a year in them. Like when I have socks that have like a hole in it.
No, seriously, at work, I work night crew at a grocery store, and I will burn through socks in like weeks. But it got to the point where I would just put a second layer of socks over that pair. Or like if I wear long socks, I'll put like a little short sock over it.
Dude, me too.
Nice. Is that
never
to
waste
keep
a sock.
warm or to just keep it from tearing more?
Keep it from tearing more. Keep it from like, I hate bare feet inside a shoe.
That's disgusting. It's like a swamp.
It's disgusting. I hate it.
The blisters.
I feel, yeah. Oh no, please.
I don't know if I ever told you about this, Chris, but I served a mission in North Carolina. It's just when you go and you proselyte, essentially, for my church I did. And when you do that, you walk a lot. You know, we didn't really usually have cars, and we'd be on our feet like, 8 to 10 hours a day. And I was in North Carolina, like I said, which in the summers is like super hot, like 100 degrees with like 120% humidity, which I don't even know how that's possible, but I don't do math. And then during the winters, we would have like ice storms where you go to bed the day before it's normal. And then when you wake up, there's like a horizontal ice like off of like the lights and the posts and stuff. And I remember that we'd still go out and like, talk to people when it was in the middle of the winter. And I didn't want to I didn't know what to do to keep my feet warm because I always have cold feet anyway. And I would wear like 6 pairs of socks. So my feet were just like these clubs. And it was like the worst. I went through lots of socks, so I understand.
Did that cut off your circulation at all with that many socks
on? It did, and it was nice because then I didn't have to feel the cold. So it was bad though, man. I'm glad I don't have to do that now. Yeah. But we got questions that aren't about your socks.
Okay. Interesting. I don't know what they could be.
We try to keep it a secret from you. We want to keep you on your toes. Why is film such an important medium for you? And there may not be an answer for this. It may just be that you just really like film. But is there a reason that for you it's not music and it's not poetry and it's not video games? For you, it's film. And why do you think that is?
I think if I boiled it down to one thing, and I've said this before, and then I realized the caveat is, ironically, animation. This does not apply to, as we've talked about today. But to me, film is the only medium that can capture life as it happens and play it back. And I think, music is an element has that as well. It could capture audio as it happens, but just the idea is the closest to how we experience life, visual and audio combined. And that ability to like come that close to reality as to literally show us reality gives it so much power to me that like a book has to describe something, you know, even music has to evoke something, but a film can literally just capture and show you something. And I tend to gravitate towards films that feel very realistic or feel grounded in reality for that reason, because I think film is so good at showing reality, you know.
Yeah.
I think film and like that doesn't even have to be so serious. I think it lends itself to improv too, and I think it does such a good job showing, like, even in my videos, like my goofier videos, it's like these people are genuinely having fun, you know. Like there's never like this air to my videos that we're trying to sell you on a fake world. It's always just like, you know, these people are goofing around and having fun, and film is the perfect way to capture that to me.
Oh, I love that. Well, very well spoken.
Thank you.
It's all about the relatability. And Chris, do you have some questions? Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I know I've been just stealing the light over here.
That's what you do. So handsome.
Let me ask.
I was going to ask you, Joel, what was it like filming Pretend That You Love Me? Because that's one of my favorite videos of yours. And I mean, obviously it's a very personal video for you. Mm-hmm. And it captured some of the most beautiful and, I don't want to say nostalgic, but it's like I feel like everyone has had a piece of that video in their life. Mm-hmm. So how was it filming that for you?
It was, well, firstly, like when I say like my films are improv, it's literally no plan whatsoever, you know. So even for a full length like movie like that, like hour and a half, it was very made up as I went. And I did a movie first called Island, and that one I kind of just sought to capture what I was feeling that day, you know. Capture something on camera that evokes what I was feeling, and that worked for me. I'm really like, I love Island. I think Island is less accessible than Pretend That You Love Me, which is saying something, because I think Pretend That You Love Me is a little slow and takes a lot of time as well. But I took that and just kind of extended it, and I'm like, if I just invite people to just have real conversations with me on camera, I think the belief that real conversations are inherently compelling, because that's what we live every day, can connect with people. I don't think you need to fake everything, you know. I don't, and that's what you see. At least the movie takes a big turn later on, but what you see for the first half are real conversations. Is like it's on camera and it's for a camera in part, but I didn't have any instructions for what we were going to say, you know. And I think what art has offered me more than anything else is the confidence and belief that me and my problems and my life are inherently interesting. And I think that is what a lot of artists get away from. They kind of like, they're like, I need to make this action movie or this intense mob movie, and they immediately go to like the purest escapism. And there's value in escapism. I love entertainment. Like I love a goofy movie or a crazy movie. But for me, art is at its strongest when it is being like, life is inherently compelling and living is inherently compelling. And believing that your life is worth broadcasting gives you such a newfound lease and appreciation for yourself and your struggles and what you go through. Yeah. If you you know, and in that way, I think it is kind of like, for me, it's an incredibly selfless film, and maybe that's not for me to say, but there are people, the few like, I don't want to talk, like, most people love it and I'm really happy to see that, but some of the more negative reviews or reactions I've seen have called it kind of a self-absorbed movie. And to me that's so funny, because I'm like, what is art but like self-absorbed? This idea that's like, I should create something and people should care about the thing I create. It doesn't matter if that film's literally you filming your life or it's Scorsese making Goodfellas. It's inherently a self-absorbed act. Just one is more open and honest about it, right?
Yeah, of course. I
For
mean, you're
sure,
selling
yeah.
a part of yourself regardless, or you're getting other people to see it.
Yeah.
It's a window into your world, basically, into your life. And
Scorsese's mob
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. That's a very long-winded answer to, but I hope there was an answer.
No,
in
that
there to
was
what you
perfect.
asked.
Thank
That was
you.
beautiful, dude. You could just put like some music behind that, and that can just be like a monologue or like a, what do you call those? Like a commencement speech. Like that was wonderful.
Yeah.
That was great.
Thank you.
I was in awe.
Yeah. I haven't ever talked about that movie yet on at least at length on a podcast. So that's nice to get something out there about it.
Yes,
No, thank you.
we loved it. So, and speaking of like your videos, especially these more personal ones, or just in general, like what inspired you to do this? What inspired you to make these videos and to push through? Like, I imagine years of not really having a giant following. Like, what inspired you to pursue videos on YouTube, sketch comedy, improv?
I think it's like that, like I talked about, where I did have this moment where I finally was like, oh, when I was making stuff as a kid, I was actually tapping into something valuable, you know, like as stupid as what I made as a kid was. Like, we made some of the dumbest videos ever when I was like 8 to like 13, you know, like really young, but there was something actually there because it wasn't so, you know, so, what's the word? Just thought over. It wasn't so overwrought with like, you know, this, we need to sell this, or this needs to be marketable, or an audience, like, what does the audience want to see? And then stepping back and like just doing that again, because after I released my movie Island is when I was like, I'm doing weekly films and let's go ahead. And just doing it became its own reward, because there wasn't that expectation for an audience, and there wasn't that like dire need to like succeed. Like, I need this next one needs to work for me, which is kind of the headspace you get put in if you're like trying to make it in the industry. You know, every project is do or die, because they make you spend so much money to make them and get them out there. And if you don't do that, there's not that pressure. So eventually they just became second nature. Like, if a week went by and I didn't do one, I don't know what I would have done, just because I was enjoying it so much. I'm like, and there was this thing that I knew I'd worked enough, and I put in like so much time over the years that I knew eventually, I thought they might be niche, but I thought eventually it would find a audience, you know, and having it finally take off, especially as big as it did, was very, was both fulfilling, and I already felt fulfilled. So it was more like the icing on the cake, you know?
Yeah.
And
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, there's so many questions I could ask about that. Just like, you know, everything you said was like, just so full of stuff. I wanted to like not ask this immediately, and I want to just know what it was like to like, not even because it's something that's like on my mind, but just I'm curious what the experience would be like to wake up one day and see that this thing you've been putting your life and soul into has finally been acknowledged by like that much bigger group of people, right? Because didn't you grow really in like a couple months from a large following but to a gigantic following? Is that, I don't know if I'm accurate or not.
It was more from a small following to a gigantic following. It went fast. I'm not sure when you guys hopped on, but I had 3,000 subscribers in November. And
Are you for real?
yeah.
What?
I think I
So,
was at the 21,000 mark is when I saw
yeah.
you.
That's insane.
So it wasn't so overnight. It wasn't like I woke up and I had 1 million. It was more like, you know, I really like, once I saw that people liked the animations, I put a little more time into those and made that a focus. And, you know, over those like weeks and months of creating more animations, it kind of was just an exponential thing. Cause, you know, the first week I did the first RPG animation, and that's what really took everything off. And that was took me from like 3,000 to 10,000 in a week, and to me that was huge. I'm like, I've just tripled my subscribers, and you know, to me I was like, we're stopping at 20,000 or 50,000. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna go to 50,000, and then it just kept going, and I just kept creating. Like, I think that was the hardest part. I didn't have time to even think about any of the implications. Like, okay, now I'm earning money from this. Now I was just like, okay, gotta keep creating. And I've kind of just been there for 6 months now. I'm like, gotta keep creating. But it's been I think there are moments where I can step back and be like, oh, that feels nice. It's nice to finally have all this work appreciated, especially that a lot of the old stuff got retroactive views, you know, like
For sure.
videos that once had hundreds of views now have like hundreds of thousands, or even like 10,000 or 20,000. It's you know, it's a huge difference. And creating in that sphere, I got over the pressure quickly, because there was a month or two period where you're like, oh god, every video you're overthinking, because you're like, now there's so many eyes on it. And I got over it quickly, and I'm like, people came because I was just doing what I loved. People who, you know, are patient will stick around if I just do whatever I love, you know. I think you'll lose some people on the way, because YouTube is a sphere where some people just want the one thing, you know. Like, there are people who subscribe that just wanted the RPG animations, and now they're angry. You know, they're far and few between, but that now they're like, if I do a goofy video, like a weird live action video, they're like, what? This isn't what I subscribed for. Mm-hmm. But I'd hope that most of my fans have the patience to be like, this guy's gonna just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, you know. And for me, it's all worth throwing because it's all making me laugh. So I'm just gonna keep throwing stuff.
No, I love that, man. I love that.
Yeah.
And I like them all, so I think they're hilarious.
Yeah.
I love the one with the when you threw
you.
your friend off the bridge. It was good. You try to kill your friend. It was a good one.
It's relatable. We all go.
We
through
all do
it.
that. I've thrown you off a couple bridges, right, Chris?
Yeah. It was like at least 3.
Yeah.
I just gotta say, some of your even goofy videos are so relatable, just like you said, but the thoughts that go in your head during our first date is so relatable. I sent it to Josh immediately because it was just cracking me up. It's just
That one's good.
Mwah.
And it's poetry, because that was actually Elizabeth, who's in that, was actually my first girlfriend, so it was kind of a reenactment.
Oh, wow.
Dude, no way. That's dope.
That's awesome.
But I had my first date with her in that house. Well, the first time I went over, so it was funny to
That's cool.
play on that. Play on some, and maybe that I do like playing on real things. You know, you can make a goofy video that is still like touching on something real, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you see that a lot on YouTube, the sort of relatable content. You know, and I was playing on that in that new video, when you kill your friend. You know, it's kind of like it's kind of easy to just do a title and then you already know it going into it. You know, and I like to play on that. I like to do those titles, like a rough approximation of how I am on a date, or I think that's the title.
Yeah.
Like, you think you know where it's going, but then just pushing it, you know? And I think a lot of YouTubers stop at the expected thing. It's like, but then they don't push it. And I think I like some of the tropes of YouTube, because it gives you a lot of leeway to mess with people. You know, you like do a title that is playing on that, or just directly aping that sort of thing, and then you could really take it to a different place and catch people off guard.
No,
For sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I had another question in regards to something that you mentioned where you're like, oh, the pressure was bad for like a month, but I've gotten over it. I don't know if anyone's like recognized you and out in like the public, or if it's changed your life at all. I know you said like, oh, now this is like an income. Like it just changes everything. So how has it changed your life? Have you had any weird experiences where people have like stopped you in the grocery store?
I'm living in my hometown right now, so the only people who have stopped me are like people I already knew. You know, so it's like people from my high school, but there is that thing where they're like, I saw you on YouTube, man, that's great. So that people have stopped me with that intention, but no strangers yet. And I just think, you know, I think COVID probably, I keep thinking about how like celebrities, like they definitely probably are thankful for the mask and everything, because I just think it's like, even if I saw George Clooney in a mask, I doubt I'd be like, is that him? You know, because like half his face is covered. So maybe if like once people stop wearing masks and stuff, there might be some more people recognizing me. I don't know. It's funny because 1 million is huge. That's a huge amount, but it's also like there's so many people in the world. It's like you go to a small town and that can mean like 3 people know you or 2 people.
For sure.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So it's a lot, but it's also like not that much. But I think some funny thing I've like picked up on is a lot of people are usually at least 1 or 2 degrees of separation from me. You know, I've had numerous friends and acquaintances be like, yeah, my roommate was watching your stuff, or like my girlfriend's brother loves your stuff, you know, just like random connections. And
Yeah.
that's funny to see. So I guess, and what was the other part of the question that changed my life? I'd say the main thing that's changed is I can now move forward confidently, because I'm gonna make a video about it, I think, but my plan now, I bought a van with a mattress and some power, and my plan is I'm gonna bounce around and live in that van. And that was my plan back when I had no money. And firstly, YouTube has allowed me to actually get a nice van, because I would have had to settle for a pretty crummy van. But secondly, I'm not somebody who spends money.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm like I don't know what came first, me making no budget movies or me being really thrifty and therefore I made no budget movies.
For sure. Yeah.
But I live so dirt cheap, and so now I'm just like trying to juggle what to do with, like, you know, an income, because I was somebody who was always just scraping by.
Yeah.
And like I have some plans. I'm gonna announce them as they solidify. I don't like announcing stuff until I feel like it's gonna happen, you know.
For sure.
That's wise.
I have some plans to make that work for me and my friends and have like something set up. I'm gonna figure that out moving forward.
That's awesome, man. And it's good. It's good to be frugal. You're like my parents in Chili's. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Eat all the chips.
Eat all the chips. Leave nothing behind. Take the salt shakers. Yeah. But no, that's very admirable.
If they were truly frugal, they would have skipped the 2 for $20 and just done the chips.
I know.
Ran out the door.
I gotta tell my mom. That's a good idea. My mom is definitely still that way, so nothing's changed. But yeah, she'll love that. It's a revelation. And oh man, I don't know, Chris. Do you have any other great questions that you'd like to ask Joel? Because I know I don't want to keep you for too long, Joel. But if there are any burning questions within you, Christopher.
What were because I don't know how the YouTube algorithm really works at all, because I remember I started seeing a lot of your videos after playing an RPG for the first time. I think that was most people's first one, right?
That was my first one.
Yeah.
Or...
That was the first one that was my first to break 1 million and my first to, you know, really get out there.
Mm-hmm. But I don't want to bring up a sore subject or anything like that, but when I first saw you, it was for the rest in peace Jack Haver best ad.
So are you talking about the first time you saw me not animated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first time I really like I saw that video, and afterwards I went into a deep rabbit hole of Joel Haver, but I just gotta let you know that for any of your videos to pull me in, and it was that one. And I hope a lot of people can agree with that, because that was such a personal video, and it was one that was kind of deeply affected me in a way, because my dad is my best friend. I still live with him, even with a wife, even though it might be embarrassing to say. But I don't know where I'm really going with this one. But maybe just thank you, I guess. Like,
yeah,
a lot of people don't appreciate their dads. You know,
it's true. You know, some dads don't earn being appreciated. You know, it can't be. You know, it depends. It's a case by case. But yeah, my dad was my best friend too, and I think I guess the heart of it was the algorithm question, which is the, I think. I don't know how it works either. If I knew how the algorithm worked, I would have not taken years to, get noticed. But I think the heart of it was there was just this drive of the way the algorithm I think works, and this is I'll come back to the emotional part of this question, but the way the algorithm I think works is it finds people who watch similar stuff to you and then recommends you similar stuff. So in the moment that everyone watched my RPG video and then my NPC, like we did the NPC animation really quickly after, because we're like, let's do another animation while people are watching and like clamoring for that. And both of those just like, they got like 100,000 views, slowed down, and then they got shoved to the algorithm. And I think what happened is enough people went back and watched my stuff that all those people were being recommended other ones of my stuff, because it's like, oh, this huge chunk of people was all watching this, so they'd also like this. And then it was like kind of like an explosion from there. And that's how I think it happened, because more so than just those two animations taking off, it was the algorithm suddenly pushing my entire channel. And I think that's what, like, the animations got me to like 100,000, and then like end of December into January, the algorithm got me the next 900,000, and which it was I think that's how it happened, if I were to think about like and I do think there is that element that when I made that video about my dad, it was the day after it happened, and to me, I had such a small but loyal fan base at that time when I made that video, maybe not even 2,000 subscribers. And I just felt like they deserved to know, because they loved him and my stuff, I wasn't even thinking much about it as like a video that, down the line would be watched. Yeah. But I think it's touching upon an important thing, and that I want to see more of on YouTube, and that's just painting a full, authentic picture of yourself. I feel like people really limit themselves to being like, I'm just doing comedy skits, or I'm just doing, I don't know what the different, like, let's plays or vlogs. And I guess vlogs are tricky because you can be authentic, but you're usually not, but stuff like that, like, I don't want the channel to just be the Joel skit show. I want people to be able to laugh, but I also want it to be a place that people feel like they could come away. Some people say they feel like I'm their friend, which is a funny thing, and I think it's I feel bad, because I'm like, I wish I could be a friend to those people, because there's too many people to even talk to. So many people DM me on Instagram, and it's just hard to, get a hold of me at this point.
Yeah.
But there is this thing that I do want, that I do want people to feel like they know me, and that even if I'm not somebody they could talk to, that I'm somebody who would understand them, because I put out this thing where I hope people understand me, right? And I think we're all just running through life trying to find the people to understand us, and just being honest about that. Not keeping up this thing of confidence where I'm always happy, I'm always good, I'm always funny. I can be messy and I could be weird, and I don't think my features, Pretend That You Love Me, even necessarily paint me in a good light. They just paint me in a light that is human. And I think being honest about your humanity is such a powerful thing you can do on YouTube that we're just not seeing much of yet.
Oh, yeah. I love that. It was very articulate. That was good. No, I've just been so impressed with everything you said. I'm sorry. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like stunned. It's dang. No, thank you, man. That was great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. Chris, is there any other question you'd like to ask? Because I've got one. I think.
would like to ask.
Oh,
sorry.
Excuse me. I think you might be saying what I'm saying.
Oh, maybe. I was going to ask you because Josh and I met when we were, 16? 15 and 16?
15, 16, yeah.
And we are 22. I'm 22.
I'm 24.
And he's 23.
I'm 24.
You're 24?
I'm 24, man.
Oh my gosh.
I'm old. I'm like Joel.
So when we met, it was right then and there pretty much. We were best friends. Couldn't keep us separated. And I was just wondering if that, if Trent or Dylan, were you guys like that? Are you childhood friends? Because Trent especially is in a lot of your videos.
It's a bit funny because Trent and I, we weren't even really, we knew he was in the grade below me in high school. And we knew of each other and had mutual friends, but it really wasn't till after high school that him and I started hanging out at all. And even then, Trent is a very new friend. He was in my first movie, We Are Sasquatch, and that was probably the first time we really bonded. He was a main character in that summer, and that was 2016. Yeah. But it was really just now COVID. I moved out of New York City in August and moved back home, and he lives a mile and a half away, and he'd been living back home with his family. And we've been talking a lot during COVID because, I don't know if he wants me to disclose, but he got dumped. And him and I, I was going through some breakup things, even though mine was a year ago, that never ends. But,
yeah, I feel you.
but he and I were really just talking a lot. And then I come home and it's I was making films in the city. So I was like, hey, let's make some together. And, we'd done a couple in the past, but he hadn't been in that many. And then we just kept doing it. And so Trent is a relatively new friend. Dylan is more of a childhood friend. We've been friends since 7th grade. I have a lot of friends, and everyone in my life I've almost always put in films. There's very few people that haven't cropped up. People who are important to me and close to me that I haven't, bonded with them over filmmaking. And so I have a lot of friends. I have friends. I'm in Massachusetts. I have a big group of Massachusetts friends that gets in my stuff. But then I have New York friends from school, and then people I met after school, and family. And I don't want to devalue it because Trent's been amazing. He's the biggest sweetheart ever. And he started his own channel, and he's been posting on there. And he's already got 4,000 subscribers, which is funny because it took me years to get there. And but it's also partially because we're close to each other, and as I take my van trip, I'm sure sadly he'll appear in less stuff. We'll probably still try to do some stuff at a distance, but my whole MO is really to just get at risk of being like hyperbolic, just collab with everyone, you know? Like I think I never want to create a bubble where that's the only people you're seeing. I always want to be getting like new faces, especially faces of people who don't have experience creating and acting, because I think spreading that creative bug and like showing people they can be funny and they can be, you know, they can have fun doing this thing. And this is another tangent, but Dylan and I did a movie called 31 Days in Marshall, North Carolina, where we went to North Carolina. I don't know if you know Marshall. It's a really small town there. And we spent a month there in 2017, and we'd never been there before. And we just made an entire, I think it's an hour, 20-minute movie with the people we met. And it was just like random people, people who never acted before. And they all did a great job, you know. And we shot it on VHS to really give it that home movie aesthetic. And that movie, more than any of my movies, I think Pretend That You Love Me shows what I want to accomplish thematically and emotionally and aesthetically. But I think 31 Days shows what I want to accomplish as far as like spreading that creative bug and showing people they can have fun and be artistic. And, you know, we left, and then I keep in touch with some of the people we filmed with, and we went back for a screening the next year. We had a lot of the people from that movie like wound up acting in other stuff and like having a lot of fun and doing stuff. And just, I think the biggest problem facing almost everyone is discouragement and this idea that life is this thing. Like life is job, sleep, die. You know? And even though like, yes, most people have to work a job to stay alive, I think even in their moments they're not working. They're discouraged, and they're not shown that they can be more than that, and that they could offer themselves more than that, more than anything. And that's what I want to accomplish. And I think that's like why I'm excited about the van idea, because I just want to find people and just like, and now with an audience, it's going to spread that bug even more. You know, it's like some guy I met at a gas station stars in this video, and he's hilarious. And then not only will that guy at a gas station feel like a star, he's like, oh, I'm in a big video, check it out. But like everyone seeing that will be like, wait, how many guys at my gas station are funny, you know?
Yeah, I love that, dude. That's awesome.
So I hope to accomplish that.
Oh, that's super cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I got some bright light here.
You got too much of that light now.
It illuminates your beauty in your mustache. Before I give to Josh to close us out here, I just want to thank you. You've been such a generous and kind person through this whole process. And we admire you, you know.
Well, thanks for having me on. I always want an excuse to talk about a movie. I love talking about movies, and I don't have an excuse to do it publicly, so this was fun.
Whenever you want.
Please come on anytime you want.
Yeah.
Oh, but thanks so much, man. We've loved having you on. We're really grateful for your like collaborative spirit, and that shines through here, obviously, collaborating with us who obviously have like no following. You know what I mean? We're just doing it because we love it, and we're grateful that you you agreed to hang out with us. I mean, that's crazy. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And with that, we're going to leave you guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Definitely, if you haven't already, if you're one of the few people that aren't subscribed to Joel, go over and subscribe to Joel, you crazy people. We're grateful for this time that we had. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.